Hey guys, welcome back to the CS Classroom. So what we're going to do today is we're going to learn how to create an application with a dynamic view. So like this, but all in the same window. We don't need to create any new windows. Also, we can transfer information between these different views without having to, again, open up another window. So let's get started. The first thing we want to do is import PySimpleGUI as SG. Then our next step is going to be for me to not mess up typing. And then we're going to create a layout for each of these individual views. Okay, so we're going to have a text in one layout. We're going to have two inputs in another layout. And we're going to have two radio buttons with some text in another layout. So layout one is going to just be, we're going to have a simple text element. So we're going to have sg.text, and then we're going to have enter your name and email address to register. All right, and then we're going to have two inputs. We're going to have text, two labels, and two inputs on the same row for name and email address. Now the idea behind this app is that it's supposed to be like a sort of voting app, except we're not really counting any votes. I mean, the point is really just more to show you how to build these sort of dynamic views. But we just need to have some form elements to show the difference between the different views. So we created a name. So we're going to say sg.text. That's going to be our name right here. And then we're also creating sg.input for this input right here. And we're giving that a key of name so that we can take the information typed in here later on. And we're just going to copy paste that for the next line. That's just going to be email address. We got to make that, okay, email address, lowercase. And then we'll give that a key as well of email address. We're not going to be doing anything with this. We're just going to be working with the name, but still, that's how you would do that. Next, we're going to create our second layout, which is right here. So we'll say layout 2 equals and what we're going to have here is we're going to have this text. So we're just going to copy this text element from up here. And then we're going to have our two radio buttons right here. So we'll have sg.radio followed by the text, which is going to be Trump. And then that's going to be part of the radio group called vote, which is necessary when creating radio buttons. And then our next row is just going to be this, but for Biden. Yep. So we'll have Biden right there. And that concludes our second layout. Now our third layout is super simple. Just have layout 3. And we're just going to have this text element right here. So again, we can just go ahead and copy this. And we'll just have thanks for voting. Also, I made a slight mistake right here. Let's return to start and then go to next right here. This should be thanks for registering. So I'm just going to put right here, thanks for registering. So right here we had a name. We had the name from the previous view, but we're not going to do anything with that at the moment. Right now, with this iteration, we're just going to show thanks for registering. Okay. And I should probably spell register correctly. Now that we've done that, we're going to create the layout to hold all of these different views. So we're going to create the layout for the window in general, which will have our buttons right here and in which these different views will exist. So we're just going to call that layout because that's going to be sort of a parent layout. And now what I want to do is each of these views, so this one right here, this one right here, and this one right here is going to be represented by a column. And a column is just a sort of grouping of elements that can exist. It's sort of a section in a window that contains a specific group of elements based on a layout. So yeah, a column is just a section. It's just a piece of the window that is kind of a container for whatever elements we want to put in there. So for example, right here, we're going to have sg.column, layout 1. So that means this column is just going to be a container for layout 1. And we're going to call that call 1. All right. So that should be layout _1 right there. And then we're going to have another one for column 2. And then another one for column 3. So we'll call that layout 2. Actually, we can just go ahead and write it like that. These are all going to be in the same array. And this is really important because these all need to be on the same row so that they can visually replace each other, right? So this is going to be in one row, okay? And then layout 2 is just going to be in the same row, but it's just going to replace whatever was in layout 1. So we'll call that column. We'll give it a key of column 2. This will be for layout 3, and it'll be a key of column 3. If we had these in separate 1D arrays, then you would just have like this view, and then underneath this you would show layout 2, and then underneath that you would show layout 3. So it's crucial that these are in the same array. Now that we've done that, we just want to go ahead and create these buttons. So we're going to say sg.window. Sorry, we're going to say sg.button. Next, sg.button return to start, and sg.button exit. Okay, and these are also going to go on the same row and therefore be in one array. So now that we've done that, we're going to get into sort of the meat of how to create this sort of dynamic window. So how to basically how to allow us to switch between these columns based on a click. All right. The first thing we're going to do is create a window for this particular layout right here. So we're just going to say sg.window. We're going to call it dynamic window, and then we're going to input this layout right here. Now we're going to get to work on the actual event loop, which is going to allow us to click on next and move to different views. So we're going to create a variable called layout equals 1 to keep track of which layout we're on. And this means by default, we're going to go to the first view, which is this. Then we're going to have while true, event values equals window.read. We're going to say, and this window is going to come from here. So we need to say window equals right here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to say if event in none or exit, just allowing us to exit the app, right? Then we're going to break out of the event loop and close the application, close the window. So this is where it gets interesting. So now we're going to handle the next event that allows us to move between different views, different columns. So we're going to say if event equals next, just allowing us to get the event for that button. Window, well, we got to have f call layout. So basically inputting this layout variable right in here. So for example, for our first view, we'd have what this would allow us to do is just have window. So first time this would just display window call 1, okay? So basically we can input this variable right here to dynamically change which layout or which column we're looking at. So .update visible false equals false. So what this means is that before we click next, like when we open up this window, we're already going to be seeing layout 1. So the first thing this is doing is when we click next, this is making this layout invisible. And then we're going to say if layout is less than 3. Okay, so if this layout variable is less than 3, which when we're starting out, it'll be 1, then add layout add 1 to layout, making layout 2. And then we're going to display window. So we're going to have the same thing we had right here. And except this is going to be true. So right here, we were using this to basically make the column 1 invisible. And right here, we're going to add 1 to layout. So layout's going to be 2. And here we're going to make layout 2 visible. All right. And now, like once that's done as well, the reason we haven't just called this layout 2 is because we'll basically go all the way through our event loop. We'll come back to if event equals next. So clicking next is what makes this 2. All right. But the next time we click next, we're going to come back through the event loop, and then one is going to be added to layout again. So we're going to be displaying 3. So that means that would make the call 2 invisible, and then that would make call 3 visible. Okay. Else if layout is less than 3, so that means if we get to this final like window right here, or this final view, and layout is 3, that means we're just going to keep showing column 3. Okay. So the reasoning behind this is we don't want the user to be able to click next and go anywhere, because this is the end of our user flow. So once we get to this window, the only thing that's going to be displayed is just our column 3, this thanks for voting window. All right. So we changed this just to 3. And we actually don't need this F anymore, because that's what allows us to input parameters in here. Okay. Now, if we didn't want to do this, there would be a different kind of logic, which we'll look at in another example. But anyways, so we've basically taken care of this next part, right? But this return to start right here, this return to start, which is basically returning us back to column 1, is also what we need to handle now, So if event equals next, we know what we're doing. Elif, we have event, so elif event equals return to start. So if someone clicks this return to start button right here, we are immediately going to say window. Well, we'll copy this right here. So whatever the current layout we're looking at is, whatever the current view is, we're going to mark that as invisible. So for example, right here, we're looking at layout 2. This is going to immediately make that invisible, okay? Bearing in mind that whatever layout we're on is kept track of through this layout variable right here. And then we're going to go ahead and we're just going to display layout 1, or column 1 rather. So we'll say window, column 1, update visible equals true. Okay. So that's basically how you just handle moving between views. Now, the other thing we need to do actually here is we need to set layout back to 1. So just to make sure that our counter right here has been reset to 1, and we've acknowledged that we are now in the first view again. Now, one thing I want to talk about as well is how we would actually keep track of data between the views, okay? So right here, we typed in, let's just type in a real name, a myth. Next, we're going to have, thanks for registering, a myth right here. So we've basically taken the data from the previous view, from the first view, and we managed to transfer it right here. So what I want to do is I want to actually create a variable to hold this. So what I want to say is we'll just say name equals, and we're going to be repeatedly going through this while loop to get to different views. So it's important that we have a variable right here holding that value. Okay. And so once we've gotten to like layout 1 right here, once we've marked this, so we viewed this, and once we mark this as false, I want to actually, what I want to do is I want to say if layout equals 1. So if we are at layout 1, after having marked this as false, or even actually we could even have this prior, but if it equals 1, we're going to set name equals values name. Now it's kind of shifting between where to put this, just because like It didn't really make a difference when I was writing this code as to where I put it, but this seemed to work. Okay, so we're going to have values, name, okay, and that is going to correspond to our name key right here. So whatever was in this input right here, okay? So we're just going to do that when we're at layout 1. Now, even though we're making it invisible, it doesn't mean the data goes away. So even if we have visible equals false, which is making this layout 1 right here false, then we still continue to have access to the data. So now that we've done that, so we've basically taken whatever data is right here and we're storing it in this name variable right here. But we want to make sure in our next view, it's going to be displayed here in this text. So what we're going to do after that is once we've switched views, which this is allowing us to switch views, we're going to say if layout equals 2. So this being layout 2, window instructions. So this instructions right here, this should match up to this, this thanks for registering right here. And we're going to change that real quick. So we're going to say key equals instructions. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace this line right here as indicated by this key. We're going to say .update right here. Thanks for registering. Thanks for registering, and then plus name. Name being this variable that we created up here, initialized, and in which we stored the value of name from the previous view. Okay. So here we're basically using this to cycle between the different views. This is to get data from a specific view, and this is to display data in a specific view. So using our layout variable right here, in conjunction with keys and specific columns, we're able to very easily manipulate and add data or share data between these views. So what I want to do now is I want to go ahead and test out the code we've written. This was a demo application. Let's go ahead and let's run what we've just written and see if we can do any troubleshooting or what's going to happen. Okay, so that's interesting. Right here we have all of this on the same row. Now part of the reason for that is because I made a mistake right up here, okay? So all of these, when we actually open up this window, all of these views are visible. So in order to fix that, what I need to do is I'm going to leave this as is. Can I put this right down here? I'm going to leave this as is, but I'm going to set this I'm going to set visible equal to false on this one. And then I'm going to set visible equal to false on this one. All right, what did I mess up right there? Okay, that's good. And the reason for that is that basically I want these two views to be invisible when I open up the app. So let's close that and let's start again. Okay, that looks much better. So let's do next. All right, we couldn't find, problem finding your key, column 1. Okay, so it seems like we have a misplaced column somewhere. So let's go down right here, and it looks like right here for our layout, we forgot this dash right here. And that meant that we didn't have the correct keys for column 1 and column 2. So we'll go ahead and exit, and we will run our code again. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and let's just cycle 2. We have next, return to start. Okay, we did the same thing for column 3, so we need to fix that as well. All right, so that's going to be right down here. The rest seem to be all right. Let's go ahead and clear this right here and run it again. All right, cool. Let's type in something right there. Hit next. Okay, we have a name right there. Maybe I'll just put a space right here to make it a bit cleaner. Okay. And yeah, something like that. Return to start. Okay, perfect. All right, so after a little bit of troubleshooting, which hopefully was instructive, it looks like that works. And that's how to create dynamic views. Remember, if you simply want to access an individual view, it would just be up to you utilizing layout or just utilizing a column value like this or like this to access an individual view. This is quite powerful. You can do a lot of things with this, especially since you can share information between views. So I hope you do make good use of this. If you enjoyed this tutorial and found value in it, please remember to like and subscribe. Have a nice day.